Recovery. Just as a reminder, recovery residences promote recovery through social model recovery by providing four supportive dimensions, upholding recovery principles, and increasing recovery capital. So it's important for us to understand what we're trying to promote, being recovery. There are many pathways to recovery, perhaps as many as there are persons in recovery, which begs this question: what is your personal definition of recovery? Recovery is a person driven, lifelong, and holistic process. Self defining what it means to be in recovery is part of that process. Personal definitions become a part of one's self identity, and as such, individuals tend to view recovery and the world around them through that definition of recovery. Personal definitions of recovery are influenced by lived experience, philosophies, and cultural beliefs, such as those found within recovery residences. A well operated recovery house is where new residents assimilate into a culture of recovery, which implicitly or explicitly is shaped by the household's definition of recovery. That leads us to this question: what is your recovery residence's definition of recovery? Which recovery paths a recovery residence is capable of supporting largely depends on its cultural philosophies and belief systems, including its definition of recovery. A recovery resident's definition of recovery will help empower consumers' choice, empowering applicants with aligned recovery goals and definitions to your particular house. A broader definition supports a broader number of pathways, whereas a narrower, can't say that word, narrower definition supports a narrower number of pathways. So probably the broadest definition and one that you've seen likely if you read any publications within the last couple of years is SAMHSA's definition of recovery, which was developed by bringing peers from both the mental health recovery community and the substance use recovery community together to draft this inclusive definition, which reads: recovery is a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self directed life, and strive to reach their full potential. So, this draft was put out for public comment. There was a lot of comment that came back and highlighted something. This doesn't include the concept of abstinence. And it's because what would abstinence look like, or how would that be relevant to individuals in recovery from mental health issues? In other later videos, we're going to explore the four supportive dimensions and the 10 guiding principles that are linked to SAMHSA's definition of recovery, which will get into some areas that highlighted abstinence as part of an individual's pathway of learning how to manage their recovery process. The next definition we should consider is one that was developed through the Betty Ford Institute. Researchers, treatment providers, recovery advocates, and policymakers were all convened by the Betty Ford Institute because they recognized the need to develop a standard definition in order to advance public understanding and research. The definition that they developed reads: recovery from substance dependence is a voluntarily maintained lifestyle characterized by sobriety, personal health, and citizenship. They went on to define these terms: sobriety, personal health, and citizenship. Sobriety meaning abstinence from alcohol and all other non-prescribed drugs. So non-prescribed drugs is highlighted there. Personal health, which is improved quality of life, which is measured through the World Health Organization's quality of life scale. And citizenship, defined as living with regard and respect for those around you, also which can be measured using World Health Organization quality of life scale. So the next definition we should take a look at was developed through an online survey that had over 9,000 individuals in recovery participate in. So this was a very large study. And to find out more about the findings and results and how this study was done, I encourage you to go to whatisrecovery.org. It's a great website with all the details that you would ever want to read about this particular study. But I think it's important for us to take a look at the definition, the high level definition. Recovery is being honest with myself, being able to enjoy life without drinking or using drugs like I used to, living a life that contributes to society, to your family, or to your betterment, being the kind of person that people can count on. It's about giving back, and it's about striving to be consistent with my beliefs and values in activities that take up a majority part of my time and my energy. So we oftentimes hear people talk about, abstinence-based recovery, which begs the question, you know, what is abstinence, or abstinence from what? And historically, some have defined abstinence as the complete discontinuation of any psychoactive substances, including medications that might be used to treat substance use issue or psychiatric disorders. So one may argue that the strength of this definition is its simplicity and clarity for individuals in early recovery, keeping them safe from relapse or allowing them to develop other coping mechanisms beyond the medication. The disadvantage is this can alienate persons with co-occurring mental health issues in combination with substance use issues, which is a large percent of the target population that we're wanting to help. Worse yet, it places them in a precarious situation, having to choose between taking medications that can improve their quality of life and accessing the mutual aid and recovery support that they need to support their recovery goals. Also, some of the exceptions that are made around caffeine and nicotine are criticized. Some question the logic of you know of FDA approved medications being deemed unacceptable when nicotine and caffeine are deemed acceptable despite having clear psychoactive properties. This is especially true for nicotine because studies overwhelmingly show that people who quit smoking during their addiction treatment have significantly better outcomes overall. As in recent years, the concept of what it means to be abstinent has evolved, and more effective and safe medications have become available to treat psychiatric disorders. So the list of acceptable or quote unquote safe medications has grown. But who's the most qualified to determine what medications are acceptable or safe for an individual or someone other than themselves? So in the case of recovery residences, we oftentimes have like house managers making these determinations, like the house manager knows best, or maybe it's the owner operator. Medications that could be habit forming or that have been used in active addiction largely remain prohibited or at least frowned upon by many members in mutual aid societies like 12-step, as well as many recovery residences. When a house manager or recovery residence provider is determining what medications are acceptable or unacceptable for someone else, or what dose or for how long they're supposed to take it, they're essentially playing doctor. And this has legal and ethical ramifications. On the flip side, do doctors know best? And I get it. The news, court systems, and pop culture document the existence of, Dr. Feelgoods, which describes prescribers who are lured by profits or maybe fame, who knowingly or unknowingly contribute to their patient's substance use disorder and or death by what they're prescribing them. While there are valid concerns around doctors not being adequately trained on substance use issues, medication decisions should and must be made between individuals and their healthcare professionals. I think this really points out to there's opportunities for better conversations and education between prescribers and recovery residence providers, really kind of understanding why individuals would have concerns around a particular medication. A lot of times doctors don't understand the addictive properties or risk that a particular medication can have. I will point out that denying an applicant solely based on a prescribed medication is absolutely discriminatory. And so, if a recovery residence is defining their absence based recovery in a way that is going to essentially deny an individual based on a medication that they've been prescribed and they're taking it as prescribed, there are some legal ramifications that you may run or likely to run up against. So, what are some other ways that we can define abstinence? And today, many have embraced a definition of abstinence as being alcohol and illicit drug free. Now, granted, housing right advocates may challenge policies that evict adults who can legally consume beer, wine, and spirits, especially for those who alcohol was not their drug of choice, or or even have an alcohol use disorder. But recovery residence policies are in place to protect the safety of all residents. Restrictions can also include over-the-counter products such as alcohol-based mouthwash. When we say the word illicit, this means it's forbidden by law. So, illicit drug free abstinence means that individuals are not using any prescription or over the counter product in a way that is forbidden by law. So, when it comes to prescriptions and controlled substances, this would include taking medications in a way that is not prescribed, as well as selling, sharing, taking, or stealing prescribed medications. Recovery residence operators often require a physician prescription for medications that are psychoactive, have a diversion risk, or cause behaviors that could impede participation in the recovery or the required activities. That can look like maybe nodding off, inability to sustain attention, or flat emotions. Similarly, discontinuation of prescribed medications oftentimes are required as a way of providing oversight. If a resident wants to discontinue their medication, a recovery residence provider may, as part of the house rules, require them to talk to their doctor before that. I also wanted to mention more about the over the counter or household products. In addition, recovery residences may also include household products that are used to achieve euphoria. A lot of people may not um, think of this, but sometimes people will abuse or misuse, rather, over the counter or household products as part of addictive behaviors. So, allowing medications as prescribed is really the takeaway of this. The reason many have turned to this definition is because it offers a framework that people can easily understand and that supports the decisions that are being made between an individual and their healthcare provider. So, the next topic is around a definition of recovery that is inclusive of individuals using medication assisted treatment as part of their recovery pathway. And for many individuals with an opiate use disorder, medications such as methadone, buprenorphine, or naloxone are increasingly used as a pathway to recovery. Medication assisted treatment has traditionally been excluded as a from recovery support in many recovery residences, given the tendency for operators to implement absence based approaches that prohibit the use of psychoactive substances and not being inclusive of medications, individuals taking medications as prescribed. So recently, this concept of MAR, or medication assisted recovery, which is the use of medication assisted treatment as a means of reaching an individual's recovery goals, has emerged as a bridge between two very distinct philosophies of absence based and medication assisted approaches. Many individuals that are associated with mutual aid societies, including many recovery residences, have begun to transition towards this MAR, or medication assisted recovery approach. This transition represents a significant shift in philosophy from traditional absence definitions. It represents a significant shift in philosophy for those who espouse medication assisted treatment as well, because they often focus primarily on the discontinuation of the substance for which the medications were used, such as heroin, without really thinking about the recovery process. While not everybody on MAT has recovery goals, such as being absent from non prescribed medications, many do, and they deserve recovery support services that support them towards those goals. So, as we start thinking about designing recovery residences and adapting recovery housing models to be inclusive and capable of supporting individuals who are taking medication assisted treatment, such as Suboxone and Methadone, we need to be defining recovery in a way that supports them on that pathway. And many are looking to this notion of medication assisted recovery to do that. That concludes this video. I hope that you tune in for the rest of the series.